Hey, it's Luke here from LT Gaming, and today we're diving back into a space sim that refuses to stay small. SpaceBourne 2 is finally preparing to leave early access, with the developers aiming for a full release on November 18th, if they stick the landing, because they have delayed a couple of times. And honestly, after spending around 25 hours with it this week, I can see why the community is excited again. This is one of those games that throws you straight into the fun, fast travel, fast combat, fast progression, and an open universe that doesn't make you jump through hoops just to fly your ship. Well, if the bugs let you. It's a kind of ambitious indie project where you can feel the developer pouring everything into it. I mean, both good and bad, and that creates a charm you don't often see in the genre. If you enjoy our awesome coverage of space games, you're going to find so much on this channel. Make sure to give the video a like, we really appreciate it. Now, in true LT gaming fashion, let's break it all down. SpaceBourne 2 is an open world space sim where you're free to roam a procedural galaxy. You can pick fights, build your own faction, take missions, dive into dungeons, visit stations, and basically live out your space mercenary fantasy. Sounds a bit kinky, but we'll go with it. And crucially, it's a space game that doesn't waste your time. Within minutes, you're in combat, looting ships, jumping across systems, or poking your nose into a war zone. That immediacy is one of its biggest selling points, especially compared to giants like X4, which can take hours just to get going. And let's not even talk about the travel in Elite Dangerous. I think I spent 4 weeks travelling out into the far reaches of the galaxy and not sure if it was worth it. The space gameplay is the star of the show. Dogfighting feels punchy and impactful, ship customization is surprisingly deep for a solo developed title, and there's a thrill to warping in with your squadron and absolutely tearing enemy ships apart. In fact, some of my favourite moments this week were those mixed combat set pieces, jumping into a fight, blowing apart a ship, boarding it and clearing the corridors on foot. It's all a little bit janky and weird, but I actually did find myself really enjoying this game. It's a bit like a 1970s sci-fi novel. It's all a bit weird, some of the themes are quite strange, but you're having a good time. I don't know if anyone out there has read any Frederick Pohl, but those are really weird books, but I highly recommend them, and you should check out the Gateway series. In SpaceBourne 2, there's also a genuinely fun empire management layer. You can create your own faction, claim systems, and wage battles across the galaxy. Now look, it isn't Stellaris level depth, but it's intuitive and powerful enough to really shape your playthrough, and I really enjoyed this aspect. And despite the indie scale, SpaceBourne 2 is shockingly photogenic. I've taken more screenshots in this game than in some AAA titles. Whether it's stations, nebula, planet surfaces, or warp tunnels, it all pops. If you want a space sim that balances ambition with accessibility, this is it. You can get into the fun far quicker than a game like X4 without the slow build-up. And unlike something like Star Citizen, SpaceBourne 2 is far less frustrating. Now don't get me wrong, there are bugs in this title, but in Star Citizen you can play for over an hour, then suddenly lose all your progress as a massive bug. It will drive you crazy. I don't think I've ever been so angry or frustrated at a game as when Star Citizen breaks. And let's be honest, that's quite often. This is an indie vision of the live-in-space fantasy, and it delivers that fantasy in a much more immediate way than the big dogs. When it works, it really works. The sense of scale, the chaos of battles, and the ability to just go off and do your own thing, it all hits a really nice sweet spot. But the biggest reason to look now is that the update coming from 1.0 seems very transformative. The big talking point right now is the jump to version 1.0, because the developers haven't just slapped on a few patches, they've gone all in. The faction system has been completely rebuilt from the ground up, giving your empire building and diplomacy far more weight and personality. The HUD system has been redesigned too, making the whole experience cleaner, sharper, and easier to read in the middle of a firefight. They've spent the last few months polishing missions, improving features, and expanding the universe with new dungeons and fresh station designs. This is all a great way to add to the immersion. Diplomacy has been deepened to make the galactic politics feel more reactive. And there's finally full gamepad support for people who want that smoother, more relaxed control scheme, though I didn't get a chance to try this myself. But one of the biggest improvements they've promised, and something I'm genuinely relieved about, is the voice acting. A huge chunk of it has been re-recorded by professional actors, bringing much more life and consistency to the characters and story. Currently, I have to say in the version I've played, the voice acting is absolutely abysmal, and it varies in quality greatly across the game. If they can combine this with upgraded sound effects, visual effects, cleaner dialogue, and improved story pacing with an upgraded galaxy generation system, the whole experience should feel more cohesive and immersive. Very important in a space sim. That was a very long sentence and I need to take a breath. All in all, they're talking about over 800 fixes and improvements. Everything from stability tweaks to mission logic, from graphical adjustments to quality of life refinements. If even half of this lands as intended, SpaceBourne 2 is about to become a far more stable, polished and enjoyable game than the version many of us have played during early access. But talk is cheap and we need to see how the final version is implemented, but I still say I've had massive fun this week, even in the early access version. So if they can pull off this raft of improvements, I will be playing more and more this year. Well, what's left of it anyway. And as we're getting near the end of the year, I do have a lot of very good games to give away at Christmas, so make sure you stay subscribed to the channel. Someone dubbed us LT Santa last year and we're going to go bigger and better in December. Just a little sneak peek of what to expect, so get excited for that one, LT gamers. And if you're not subscribed, it's absolutely a great time to hit the button below. Both me and Tom really appreciate it. Look, I love the ambition of this game and I really enjoy that it's trying to be different and also that it's a little bit weird. But let's be honest, SpaceBourne 2 has been incredibly buggy during my time with it. Things break, missions glitch, ships freeze, and sometimes the only answer is a complete restart. Despite this, none of it has stopped me playing, unlike Star Citizen. I've been quite forgiving here and none of it has really set me back that far in my game, and to be honest, I'm hoping the new patch will fix a lot of the issues. For example, there was one annoying bug where I couldn't exit my ship on a certain mission in the system, and then all of a sudden I couldn't enter the HQ either, but both these were solved with a restart. And the forum was extremely helpful, so thank you to the individual who helped me out in the Steam forum. It's much appreciated. You don't see a lot of goodwill there these days. It's also very clear to me that the ground gameplay is weaker than the space content. It's not terrible and I'm glad to have it, but it feels a generation behind the rest of the game. Simple animation, stiff gunplay, odd AI, it all needs a little bit of refinement. And this was the same when I reviewed the game way back when it first came out. And while the dev promises new voice acting, the current voice work is, well, to be honest, really rough. Genuinely rough. It pulls you out of the experience. So if you're on the fence, I would recommend waiting for that 1.0 patch to see if they actually fix the voice acting and other elements. But for someone like me who's more of a risk taker with games, I would be happy to jump in and try this out in its current state. And like I said, I've put over 50 hours into SpaceBourne 2 now. I genuinely will keep playing after this review. In fact, if I can break away from my wife tonight, well, you know, I'm always joking about her, but she's actually lovely. I will have a good session on SpaceBourne 2. And when I'm playing a game away from the channel, that's actually a really good sign. Sometimes I need a palate cleanser, like I recently fired up Jurassic World Evolution 3 because I needed something a little different to break away from the games on the channel, but SpaceBourne 2 has kept me captivated this week. Still, almost every problem in SpaceBourne 2 falls into the category of fixable, and that's exactly what the 1.0 update is targeting, so let's give them a chance. Now, if we're thinking about comparisons, SpaceBourne 2 sits somewhere between Star Citizen and X4. Honestly, it might be the best entry point if you love both of those games but want something less punishing. If we're thinking versus Star Citizen is far less frustrating, far more stable, and you're actually playing the game instead of testing systems. Obviously on a smaller scale, but it delivers a fantasy in a more forgiving way. If we're thinking versus X4, it's faster, more accessible, and more RPG driven. X4 is deeper and more polished, but SpaceBourne 2 drops you into the action without needing a tutorial degree. And if we throw in No Man's Sky, well, it's more structured and story driven, less about exploration loops, more about combat and faction gameplay. It's not better than all of those games, but it's a brilliant midpoint with its own identity and ambitions. And I think this has to be balanced with price. It's only €19.50 in my region. I think that's a really good price point. It's definitely a lower barrier of entry and it allows you to take a little bit more risk and play with the systems. So my hope for the future, stability, stability, stability. I've been very upfront about the game's shortcomings, but I do feel it could become a genuine cult classic if the 1.0 release consolidates everything and fixes the long-standing frustrations. I'd also love to see deeper ground missions, better animations, and more dynamic faction wars. Because the foundation is there. You can feel the potential in almost every system in this game. SpaceBourne 2 has always been ambitious, now it just needs that last refinement pass to match its vision. I've been Luke from LT Gaming, and I'll see you out there amongst the stars.